Republican Congressman Carlos Gimenez of Florida, a member of the House Homeland Security Committee and Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thank you for joining us. I'm going to get to the hostages, very important subject in a moment, but I want to start here because the IDF says that it responded to 3 rocket launches from Lebanon and struck Hezbollah terrorist targets. This all happening last night. Fire exchange still taking place. Are you concerned that this war will expand?
I think everybody should be concerned if this war expands, and got to look toward Iran as probably the perpetrator, probably the puppet masters of everything that's happening in the region. So yeah, it would concern me because then it would, fighting a 2-front war is a little bit different than putting all your energy into what's going on in Gaza. I know that the Israeli forces are up there and are prepared for anything that may be coming from the north, but the more it's a one-front war, the better it is for Israel and the better it is for us too.
Yeah. And of course, Congressman, meanwhile, the U.S. has positioned a formidable fleet of assets in the region. Jen Griffin just reporting this hour, the U.S. says Eisenhower has arrived in the Mediterranean Sea. So is it possible, of course, we don't want this, but is it possible that the U.S. could get dragged into military action?
Everything's possible, but I hope not. I think that the Biden administration so far has actually had restraint in some of their actions. I know that our forces have been fired upon from Syria and from forces there, and that we have struck back. And we need to make sure that if it happens again, it keeps happening, that we do strike back. But we don't want to be seen as a part of a problem there. If we have too heavy a hand, then it could be an excuse for other people to get involved in this conflict. And right now, it's between Hamas and Israel and some Hezbollah. If we keep it that way, I think it's a much better outcome. And I think actually the way it should happen is just try to keep it as contained as possible. Although I do believe that Israel has every single right to go into Gaza and destroy Hamas, which really should be the final outcome. There should be no Hamas after this military action terminates.
And meanwhile, if this is the second stage of war, it is less aggressive than expected. Might that be designed to create room for mediation to release the 230 hostages?
I think so, but also, they've got a tough road to hoe here, and of all these tunnels and all, so I think they really have to map this out strategically and try to take this down piece by piece, and then basically move them out until they no longer exist. Look, the hostages that's another question. This is what Hamas wanted to do, take a bunch of hostages so that they could slow down Israel's advance against them and use them as human shields like they use their own people as human shields. I think Israel understands this, and Israel is just going to do what it needs to do at the pace that it needs to do it, so that, and they see it as the way to be successful. They have to be successful, they have to win this, and they have to destroy Hamas. If not, we're going to see this again in the future. The only road to lasting peace is with the utter destruction and elimination of Hamas.
And let me billboard what you said, which is that Hamas, let's not forget, Hamas is holding people as human shields, even Palestinians, let alone the Americans and foreign nationals. So with that billboarded, as I said, and Israel, of course, has the right to defend itself, and the barbaric attacks by Hamas are unforgettable. But I do ask, and this is the question I think some people do want to know, not sure there is an answer for it, but how does IDF annihilate the terrorists without killing more innocent Palestinians?
Look, I'm not sure it can, and that's unfortunate. But if you don't eliminate Hamas now, it'll just cause more lives in the future. And so, yeah, it's a difficult choice. Israel's doing everything in its power to make sure that it targets Hamas fighters, Hamas terrorists, and try not to kill the civilians. But Hamas puts its own civilian population, at risk. Hamas is the one that, puts their munitions underneath hospitals and churches and and other public buildings. And Hamas is the one that's keeping their people there. And so, look, at the end of the day, I know there's going to be innocent loss of life. I mean, war is not clean, and there is always innocent loss of life. But Israel has to take the action it needs in order to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And that not only protects Israeli lives, but it will protect Palestinian lives in the future, because every single time that Hamas strikes Israel, there's a retaliation. And you know what? Innocent Israelis die, innocent Palestinians die, and the perpetrator of all this are the actions that are done and perpetrated by Hamas. Hamas is the head of the snake in this instance. We know the big head of the snake is Iran, and Iran has to be taken care of, in a separate way. But in this instance, it's Hamas. That's who we need to take care of. That's who Israel needs to take care of to avoid this innocent bloodshed being spilled in the future.
We will leave it right there. Congressman Carlos Gimenez, thank you very much for joining.